Dostoevsky understood something terrifying about human nature. We sabotage the very love we desperately crave. In his masterwork, Notes from Underground, he introduced us to a character so psychologically raw, so brutally honest about his self-destruction, that readers over 160 years later still feel personally attacked. The Underground Man doesn't push people away because he hates them. He pushes them away because he hates himself. And if you've ever sabotaged a relationship right when it was getting good, ghosted someone who genuinely cared, or built walls so high that nobody could climb them, you're living out Dostoevsky's prophecy. This isn't about being introverted or needing space. This is about something far more sinister happening beneath your conscious awareness. Let's get uncomfortably honest for a moment. You meet someone who actually sees you, who wants to know you, who offers genuine connection. And what do? You find reasons they're not good enough. You create distance. You pick fights over nothing. You disappear without explanation. Then, alone in your room at 2 a.m., you feel the crushing weight of isolation and wonder why nobody stays. But here's the twist that Dostoevsky understood. You already know why. Deep down, you're engineering your own abandonment because some twisted part of you needs to prove that you were right all along, that you're unlovable, that people will leave, that vulnerability only leads to pain. You're not protecting yourself from future hurt. You're creating the very hurt you fear, controlling the narrative of your rejection before someone else can write it. The Underground Man lives in all of us. That voice that whispers you're too damaged, too much, too broken for genuine connection. And the truly maddening part? You're aware of what you're doing even as you do it, watching yourself self-destruct like a spectator in your own tragedy. Dostoevsky wrote Notes from Underground in 1864 during a period of intense personal suffering, crushing debt, epilepsy, gambling addiction, and the fresh grief of losing his wife. But this novella wasn't autobiography. It was prophecy. He was diagnosing a uniquely modern sickness, hyperconscious paralysis. The Underground Man is cursed with too much awareness. He overthinks every interaction, analyzes every motive, sees through every social convention. He's simultaneously superior to everyone and inferior to everyone. He craves recognition but despises those who might give it to him. He's a walking contradiction, and that's precisely the point. Dostoevsky was showing us that extreme self-awareness, that endless internal commentary on our own behavior, doesn't liberate us. It imprisons us. The Underground Man represents what happens when consciousness turns toxic, when thinking about living replaces actually living. He's so busy narrating his life that he's not present in it. Sound familiar? How many moments have you experienced through your phone's camera? How many conversations have you had while simultaneously crafting the story you'll tell about them later? The Underground Man is the voice in your head that's constantly commentating, judging, protecting, and ultimately isolating you from authentic experience. Dostoevsky understood that this type of person, and we've all been this person, pushes people away through a specific psychological mechanism: preemptive rejection. The Underground Man orchestrates a humiliating scene with a prostitute named Liza. When she responds with genuine compassion instead of disgust, when she offers him real human connection, he panics. He verbally destroys her, shoves money in her hand like payment, and reduces a moment of potential intimacy to a transaction. Why? Because her genuine care threatened his carefully constructed identity as someone unworthy of love. If he accepted her compassion, he'd have to dismantle his entire worldview, his protective cynicism, his comfortable suffering. It's easier to hurt her first, to prove that connection is impossible, than to risk the vulnerability of being truly seen. This is the Underground Man's curse. He wants desperately to be known and loved, but he's terrified of being known and rejected, so he rejects first. He maintains control over his suffering by authoring it himself. So how do we escape the underground? How do we stop being our own worst enemies in relationships? The path out isn't simple, but Dostoevsky left us clues. First, we need to recognize the pattern without judgment. And this is crucial. The underground man's additional torture was his constant self-flagellation, his endless analysis of his own pathology. He knew exactly what he was doing wrong, and that knowledge became another tool of self-punishment. You need to observe your self-sabotage with curiosity rather than condemnation. When you feel the urge to push someone away, when you start finding flaws in someone who's been nothing but kind, when you craft the exit strategy before the relationship has really begun, pause. Don't judge yourself for the impulse. Simply notice it. Say internally, there's the underground man again, trying to protect me by isolating me. This creates space between impulse and action, between pattern and choice. The awareness itself, held gently rather than weaponized against yourself, begins to loosen the pattern's grip. Next, you need to understand that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the only path to genuine connection. The underground man believed that exposing his true self would result in rejection, so he rejected first. But here's what Dostoevsky knew and what modern psychology confirms. People connect through shared vulnerability, not through perfection. When you admit fear, confusion, or imperfection, you're not giving someone ammunition to hurt you. You're giving them permission to be human too. Start small. Share something real with someone safe. Not a performed vulnerability, not a story you've polished for maximum impact, but an actual, uncertain feeling in real time. Watch what happens when you say, "I'm scared of getting close to people," instead of manufacturing distance. The underground man could never do this because he needed to maintain superiority through his suffering. His pain made him special, more conscious, more aware than the normal people he despised. You have to be willing to be ordinary in your struggles, to discover that your fears aren't unique philosophical insights, but common human experiences. This isn't lowering yourself, it's joining humanity. Finally, you must act against the pattern, especially when it feels most urgent. This is where Dostoevsky's Christianity, however complicated, offered him an answer the underground man couldn't access: grace through action. When every fiber of your being says run, stay. When your mind generates a list of reasons this person isn't right for you, recognize it as the defense mechanism it is. When you draft the text message that will create distance, don't send it. Instead, do the opposite. Move toward connection instead of away from it. Call them. Be honest about your fear of closeness rather than acting it out through withdrawal. This doesn't mean staying in genuinely unhealthy relationships. It means not sabotaging healthy ones because health feels unfamiliar and therefore dangerous. The underground man's tragedy was that he saw the trap but couldn't stop walking into it. You have the same vision, but you also have choice. Each time you choose connection over self-protection, you're rewriting the story. You're proving to your nervous system that vulnerability doesn't always lead to destruction. You're becoming someone who can be loved not because you're perfect, but because you're present. Dostoevsky's Underground Man remains one of literature's most painfully accurate psychological portraits because he captured a timeless human tendency. We often destroy what we most need. But awareness of the pattern, even the uncomfortable hyperawareness that characterizes the underground man himself, can become the key to freedom rather than another lock on the cage. You're not doomed to push people away forever. You're just scared, and that fear has been running the show. It's time to let something else lead. Maybe not blind faith, but courageous action in the face of uncertainty. That's how you climb out of the underground. One vulnerable moment at a time, one choice toward connection over control, one risk that maybe, just maybe, you're worth the love you've been refusing. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, or subscribe. Let's grow together.